Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to gather together today on the traditional territory of the Kakite First Nation and Coast Salish people, and I am so honored to be able to serve as the MLA for New Westminster, this beautiful community right on the banks of the Fraser River. I'm very stoked to be with such an amazing panel of really strong advocates and really terrific local government partners in much of this work. And I have to say, it's really nice to be at an event that is co-hosted by the Metro Vancouver Alliance, because many years ago, when I was a research and policy analyst with the Hospital Employees Union, I had a hand in some of the early sort of nascent meetings of the Metro Van Alliance, and I worked with Deborah Littman and other folks who were sort of in that space at the time. And indeed, one of the things that HAU did in the mid-2000s in response to really fundamental economic injustice and racism in our healthcare sector was to launch Vancouver's first living wage campaign. And I learned an incredible amount from that experience in terms of not only deepening my understanding of community organizing, but also working with populations who experience inequity and racism on a day-to-day basis. So and that work has really stuck with me throughout everything I have done since, and including very much in this area. And it's nice to see some folks that I worked with when I was Minister of Education around some of our anti-racism initiatives who are here as well. I guess maybe I'll just reflect on two things. One is that as a representative for a community that is on the Fraser River, I hear a lot from constituents, from people in my community, about the importance of the river, the importance of salmon, the importance of salmon habitat. I hear from kids at the New Westminster Secondary School Environment Club who are incredibly smart and analytic and knowledgeable, and who are leaders in their peer groups, and who are going to be the leaders in future years, absolutely, in whatever field they ultimately go into. And I have learned a lot from discussions and lobbies and protests when they come and protest my office, which is great. I think they should do that. And so it's, we have quite a connection in this community to the land that we are on, and to the environment that we are on. And I learn a lot from that. As the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, I guess what I would offer is that we are in a very challenging time. And, as George said, there's good news and bad news, and there's a lot of kind of just challenging news to deal with sort of in between those two pivot points. We are in the midst of intersecting crises. We've just come out of a kind of collective global existential crisis in the COVID-19 pandemic that we are still grappling with in many ways. We have intersecting crises around the impact of climate change and extreme weather. We have inflation like we have not seen in decades as a result of many factors, but in part coming out of a global pandemic, global instability, and such. And so these are very volatile times for people, and I think we all see that in our communities. And it is made worse for people when we experience, a wildfire season that starts in May, when we have heat waves in May that never happened when I was a kid. So those are really compel us as much as they certainly put this issue front and center in terms of how people in our communities are living these experiences day to day. They also really compel us to act, and to act together at all levels of government with all of our NGO partners to make the progress that we need to make. Because I think that when I was in education and really concerned about the growing amount of sort of climate grief that I know the younger generations are experiencing, and I think about that in my own experience about fear, the existential fear around nuclear war when I was a young kid, when I was in high school. These are things that we all have, of course, have an enormous moral and collective responsibility to address. And what I have learned from my time in government, and in particular, with the work that George has done, is just really how complex these issues are to tease apart and to make to make progress on at every level. But I have to say I'm very grateful for the leadership and advocacy that comes from outside government and for the work that we get to do inside government and with our partners on the ground. Thank you.